Welcome to Documentary First, an inside look at a first-time filmmaker's journey. I am your host, Josh Lindsay from the Movie Proposal Podcast. And with us is our first-time filmmaker, Christian Taylor.
Hey, Josh. How are you?
I'm great, Christian. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Thank you. And also with us, as always, is the guy we cannot do anything without, Jason Rugg.
Hey there.
Hey, Jason. I like that fuzz you got going on there. It's a new thing.
Yeah, I haven't really shaved in a week, so we'll see what happens. It's nothing good so far, but we'll see.
See you guys. Hey, how are things on the Movie Proposal, Josh? Anything interesting coming up?
Well, if you haven't checked out the interview with Tony Bancroft, he did a Netflix movie. That was a lot of fun. And then Kevin McCreary from Say Goodnight Kevin was also a lot of fun. So those were a couple episodes back. Upcoming, well, in the world of film, movies are just like this week beginning to go into theaters for the first time. And so, the first kind of, I think, big release won't be till September 3rd. So by the time you hear this, it'll probably be past September 3rd. But right now we're checking out streaming stuff, and it feels like it's January, when there's just not a whole lot to watch.
Yeah.
But it's August, and we should be watching blockbusters right now, but we're not. And so,
yeah, we're kind of struggling. We're trying to figure out what to do next. We're like, I don't know, Hulu released a thing. Should we do that?
Right.
Yeah, it's a confusing time. And I can attest to that because I had a very strange experience this weekend, thanks to COVID. But we received super exciting news this week, which I'm not allowed to announce at the moment, but I will tell you.
What? All right, give us a clue.
I'm going to give you a clue. The clue is I had to pre-record 2 acceptance speeches.
No way.
What?
Yeah, I did, which is so exciting and terrifying and also potentially heart crushing, because you're sitting here accepting awards and you may not end up with them.
Oh, wait. So you were nominated and they just want the pre-recording?
Actually, we made it to finalist in 2 categories.
Oh.
There are only 3 finalists in each category. So we do have a 1 in 3 chance.
Hold on. You don't know if you've won yet, but you had to give a speech as if you have already won?
Exactly.
That's a little cruel.
Hollywood is so fake. This is it's all just fluff. It's all, I don't believe anything anymore, right?
I know. That's why I wanted to talk about this, because it truly is a very strange thing. And I'm sure that this does happen. I've actually seen it happen before when people are nominated and they can't be there. But this time it's happening with everyone because of COVID. So in this film festival, it is a hybrid. But for the most part, it's online. And so people are not going to be there for the awards to be announced, and they're not going to tell who wins the award until the closing ceremony. So, everybody that is a finalist had to record acceptance speeches. Oh, it was so hard. It was so super hard. And I tell you, I had to involve friends, my family. I made a billion mistakes. And in the end, the final take we have to use, I didn't even get to thank my family. So that was really terrible. I'm sorry, family. I tried. Just forgot things. So anyway, that is exciting, and it was terrifying. Okay. The other great thing that happened this week was we brought on a new head of business operations. And so he's already shaking things up.
Did you already have a head of business operations?
We did not. Okay,
so when you say new, you mean
this is
new?
Totally new thing. Yeah, my son Hunter Taylor has officially joined the team.
Whoa!
So he started this film thing, 2015, and hopefully he'll take us out. It did dawn on me, like I said before, somebody's going to have to inherit this project, so it's probably better that he comes in on the business side sooner rather than later. He has a shiny new business degree from Leeds School of Business at University of Colorado, and his major was in analytics, data analytics, and he's formed his own company that's already profitable, and he just has a lot of super awesome skills. However, he's got 4 job applications in the pipeline for military and service things, and they all got held up by COVID. So he has some extra time on his hands, and he's going to help us out. So I'm super excited for that.
And he's living at home. So I was going to ask, how can you afford this guy? But now I get it. Very smart.
I'm feeding him for his labor. And
that's right.
I think we may try to have him on next week so we can talk a little bit about how he's going to come in with a business mind and look at how he can help us. So, yeah, those are the exciting news things happening this week. We did get a few more rejections, which now ironically just roll off my back. Doesn't matter when.
That's actually good to hear, because everyone experiences rejection. It's just, I think your length in the game, your stickiness to filmmaking has to do with dealing with the bad as well as the good. And so if you can let that stuff roll off your back, man, I mean, we're going to have to remove this moniker of first-time filmmaker and start calling you veteran filmmaker, right? So
eventually, I hope that would be nice. I think, I'll have to go through this whole process again once reviews and critiques start coming in, but it is an important process. I had to learn it in the acting world. You just gotta, move on. So, that I think was sort of good this week. And, we're going to move on. I think what has happened so far, I've been pretty amazed with. So we're going to enjoy that and not focus on just about anything else.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, today we have, before I go to the next thing, do you have any other updates?
Oh, well, are you noticed the shirt I'm wearing?
Oh, all I can say is it looks like a surfboard. It says Works.
John Cooper Works. I got a new car this weekend that I'm super excited about. A bright chili red Mini Cooper.
And for all you filmmakers out there, very important stuff.
It was a gift from my husband. I did not buy this myself. But the exciting thing is I will take it to the drive-in for our Ohio screening. And my plan is to watch it out of the roof of my little sunroof. So that'll be fun.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. Anyway, and I had another thing happen this week. I had a great consultation with somebody super special that's been helping us from the beginning. You reminded me in our last podcast, you said, Christian, have you talked to anybody else other than David Patterson about distribution or get any advice? And I already had scheduled an appointment with like my chief consultant who's been there from the beginning. And I thought, hey, why don't we have her on the podcast? So we have a special guest for everybody today.
Awesome. Okay, well, she's been hiding this whole time, if you're watching this on Zoom or video or whatever, but she's about to reveal herself. It's the Guerrilla War Freedom consultant, Nicole Bernardi-Reis. Give it up for Nicole Bernardi-Reis. Woo!
Thank you, everybody. Hi.
Hi,
nice to be here.
Welcome.
Thank
So,
you.
Nicole, you've been here from the beginning. Is that right?
I have been on mute since this production started. I've been on Zoom for 4 years now, waiting for this moment.
Oh,
long moment.
Fantastic. So, all right. Now you do consulting. We're going to hear about your input on distribution, but I don't think many people know who you are. So, Nicole, if you could give us a background introduction to, who you are and what you do.
Sure. I am a independent filmmaker, primarily doing documentaries now, but I've done a little bit of everything in my career, mostly as a producer, but also as a writer and director. I spent 3 years working as the executive director of IFP Chicago, which is how I became involved with this film. Christian was looking for a fiscal sponsor, and I, had a meeting with her and just really loved what she was doing and her vision, and that she was a first-time filmmaker taking on such an impressive project. And so I just kept in touch with her after that and started consulting with her.
Well, and we had known each other before that.
It's true. You came through the door and I was like, yes, Christian. We had worked together on a mutual friend of ours, Sandy Gordon, who is an amazing producer and just a whirlwind of organizational nature, if nature can be that organized.
She's also one of our consultants and will also be on the podcast. She's incredible.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sandy's amazing. And so I met Christian when we were working on a pitch, a demo for a TV series concept.
Yeah, that was my first real pitch project. So I'd done field producing for Inside Edition, but I got this story and I went to Sandy, who was then a pitch producer at the time, and said, I was stuck on a train in a snowstorm pitching something or producing something for Inside Edition, and I was with the Chicago Slaughter owners for 3 hours. And they said, you need to do a TV series about us. So we started doing that, and we hired Nicole as a field producer for one of our principal photography shoots. So that was the very first time that we worked together. And so when this project came up, Sandy said, Nicole has a lot more experience in, independent film and especially documentary. You should seek her out. So it was awesome when I went into the IFP office, and there she was. IFP, if you don't know, is the fiscal sponsor for our film. So Nicole, can you explain a little bit about what IFP does for us?
Well, so IFP Chicago was the Chicago offshoot of Independent Filmmaker Project, which is a New York nonprofit. They still exist. IFP Chicago actually has merged with Stage 18 and is now the Illinois Film Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so what we did, and what IFA is continuing to do, is to support filmmakers wherever they are in their journey. And so fiscal sponsorship is a great way for filmmakers to raise funds. Basically what it is you get a nonprofit, in this case it was IFP Chicago, to sponsor you. And so instead of going out and having to find people who might want to invest in your film, you can find people who will want to donate to your film. So it's a great way to, build your budget without necessarily having to worry about paying people back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so you got involved, you guys, knew someone who knew someone, and we were talking about distribution and getting, because every step of the way is a new step for Christian. And so she's in the distribution phase. So what, I don't know, Christian, maybe you can kind of guide this conversation a little bit, but because there's so much to distribution, Christian's gotten an offer, she's, they're reading through it, but there's different avenues that could potentially go. Do you jump at the first offer? Do you wait? How have you been involved in that conversation?
Sure. So I was going to say,
real quick,
go ahead.
The reason that I called her last week is that you didn't get to the part about your experience where you actually have done and produced things. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about what you've done so we have some sort of reference. And I really needed her to walk me through what does it look like after this phase. And that's what I'd like her to talk about today. So why don't you share that?
Sure. So as Christian mentioned, I am a filmmaker. I've produced a number of documentaries. I'm producing 2 right now, which is a really fun thing to do in COVID. But the last one that I produced, Radical Grace, which is actually, you can kind of see right there. We actually had a really nice run with it. It was a film about nuns who were kind of standing up to the Vatican. And we went through that entire process of looking at, we premiered at a A-list festival at Hot Docs. We had 4 offers walking away from that. We were very clear about our goals with what we wanted with the film and the impact we wanted to make, which that actually, when people talk about distribution, they always talk about it like after, the film is made. And you need to start thinking about distribution, honestly, probably before you're making the film, because you need to know why you're making the film and who you're making the film for and how you're going to get it to them. And there's lots of different ways you can do that. So, with Radical Grace, we were able to I did a lot of the negotiating with the different distributors. We had, like I said, traditional distributors, people who were interested in working with us on just certain rights. And then we knew that we wanted to have a really big impact campaign and have a lot of like non-theatrical things that we could control. So, we did that process. It's still, I think it's still on iTunes. Like I said, I think when we were talking before we got started, different filmmakers also have to kind of figure out where they fit in, what their tolerance is in terms of how long you want to be involved in something like this. And for that particular film, it wasn't my film. I was a work for hire producer, and I took it through the distribution, process in terms of it being sold. And the filmmaker, Rebecca Parrish, is the person who's actually doing all the accounting and, license renewals and those sorts of things. So, that's where we're kind of I think that's why Christian came to me. And I've worked with other filmmakers and other films too. In fact, there's one that we premiered in 2014, and we finally got all of our, that's Algren. It's a feature documentary, and we finally got everything in place. And so we're ready to go for distribution, look at distribution for that now, 6 years after we did our film run, so our festival run. So it's, every film has a different kind of path. But in talking with Christian, she wanted to definitely think about like, what does it mean if she accepts this offer? Right.
Yeah.
So,
and I just want to say, you mentioned Radical Grace, and I definitely think people should look for that and check it out. You also mentioned Algren. It's a documentary that you worked on with Michael Kaplan, who is also a consultant on this film. So
yes.
That's three heavy hitters that I just happened to know. I was so blessed to know early on. And all of them have had just different paths. And I think filmmakers that are listening to this, they should know a couple of things. Every film is different. Every filmmaker is different. You have different desires to be involved on different levels. Your pathways are different. For every filmmaker, there is a different path. And so my path is not going to be yours, but there are people like Nicole who are there as consultants who you can hire to kind of guide you through the process. So if you are a filmmaker and you're looking for someone, Nicole, how can you be found?
You can find me. I'm a little bit hard to find these days because I don't have a website, but you can email me at nicole@mediabot.tv. That's the best way to find me.
Yeah, there you go. So my, real question is, I know you may not have done this yourself, but what does it look like after you've made a deal with a distributor and you're locked in? When do I start seeing checks?
Well, that depends on the deal you made with them, and what is, what's included in their costs. If you have a good sense of what their costs are, if you've negotiated a cap on what their costs can be, if they're recouping their costs at the same time that you are getting money, these are all negotiating points. But when it does start to turn a profit, and it depends if you've got somebody who's doing all your rights, or if you've got, if you took your educational rights and you have a company for your educational rights, if you're doing your non-theatrical on your own, if you are doing, if you went with a traditional distributor for broadcast, those all are different time frames for when you can start seeing money, right? And it's really about who is controlling, what are the costs associated with them, who gets to control how much those costs are, and when do you, when are those paid back? Because if you're getting any money up front, that's a minimum guarantee. It's an advance on what they think that they can, they can recoup. A lot of companies right now are not. Huh?
That's down now. Nobody's really doing that much.
No, it's only a very special. Yeah, it's only like a very small group of people are getting MGs. So and they usually have lots of films and awards behind them. Everybody else, I think, it has to be much more entrepreneurial and understand what they want. That's why it's always like you have to know what your goals are, right? What is your goal? Like what's going to define success for you with this film? What's your goal? Is it to make money? Is it to get your name out there? Is it to sell a film? Is it all of the above? Then how do you prioritize those? And then that's kind of how you really get to decide, that should drive what your choices are in distribution.
Yeah, I think those are the first questions you asked me way back when I worked with her through the script. She read the initial script. We did talk about distribution early on, even through that. She kept always asking me, what are your goals as a filmmaker? Do you want to just get this story out? Do you want to make more films and so you want to make a name for yourself? Do you have a specific dollar amount that you want to make? What are your goals? And that started at the very beginning. What are some other questions? Say those slower. You rattled them off really quickly.
Oh, let's see. Because I get excited and then I forget what I say. So, I think it's first and foremost is like, why are you making the film and who are you making the film for? Right? Because you should be starting to build your audience while you're making your film. Because we all need to be much more entrepreneurial. And the fact of the matter is that your audience is going to be for, if you build your audience right, it's not just for this film and the specific topic. You're hopefully creating a long-term relationship with this audience that then can come with you to your next film and to your next film and however many films you want to do. Like I said, who's it for? We had a long talk, Christian, about like, is this film just for World War II buffs? Right?
Yeah.
How much is it for World War II buffs and military buffs? How much is it for people who appreciate history? How much is it for people who, these are really personal stories, and these are stories of sacrifice. And, what did you want to, when you put the film in the world, what do you want it to achieve? Like, these are all things that you should be thinking about. A, when you're making your film or when you're thinking about making a film, but B, also it all directly leads to distribution because, those are the people who you are making the film for, and you want to make sure that you're getting it into their hands.
Well, and it's interesting what I've learned about the distributors that you've mentioned is the reason we need to be thinking about those questions is because distributors are so different. Let's just look at North American distributors, okay? Not even worldwide. But in North America, you have distributors that have all sorts of different reputations. And they are, A-list distributors all the way down the line. There are ones that focus on narrative. There are ones that focus on documentaries. There are one that focus on just criminal justice. I mean, there are as many filmmakers there are different distribution companies, and they all have their own goals and their own relationships. And so you have to find the one that's a perfect fit for you. And that you have to ask a lot of different questions. And so for our film, we have tried to find filmmakers that have distributed previously documentaries about military or World War II subjects because they've cultivated those relationships with the History Channel, with the American Heroes Network, and they already have an audience that's following them, on social media or on, YouTube or iTunes or whatever. It's just so big, Nicole. It's so, and I was telling her the other day, like I was telling her about this agreement, and I said, I'm just so afraid of making a mistake. Everything is so new. I am afraid of taking this offer and it being bad. How do I know?
I have a question about that because, you think of buying a house, you have representation. You have a real estate agent typically acting on your behalf who knows more than you do. Well, you're the first-time filmmaker, and you're supposed to be negotiating a deal that you've never had to deal with because it's huge, right? So I was wondering, Nicole, like in your experience, are you the filmmaker negotiating these deals? Do you have someone like a business manager who's doing that?
You have a lawyer. A lawyer generally can do that. My lawyer is like working with me because I'm a really good fake lawyer. So I tend to just really dig into contracts and deal points and things like that myself. And then I come back to them and I'm like, I think this is kind of BS. And they're like, yep, it is BS. I'm like, great. Please tell them that it's BS. So I don't have to, I would recommend no one should be looking at legal stuff without a lawyer. And I think you have to consult. And luckily there's great places that you can you can get not just people like myself, but people have been doing it for longer. And there's a place called the Film Collaborative, which is a nonprofit out of Los Angeles. And Orly Ravid, who started it, is a lawyer, and she's got a number of really, really amazing people who work with her, who have been in the film festival and distribution end of things for a while. And they, they're great, and they don't cost that much. They don't cost that much money.
Well, and we have in Chicago, there's the Lawyers for the Creative Arts.
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of resources. I think what was interesting is I've felt a lot of comfort over the last couple of weeks as I've been talking with this company about the distribution to have my new head of business operations in on the conversations. Mm-hmm. Because I'm hearing from my lawyer about legal stuff, but Hunter has been thinking about the overall business perspective. And is this business plan for this company a wise business plan? So Hunter's looking and digging into this particular company, how they run their business, what their movies have done, and is analyzing that statistically in his brain to see if it's a good fit for us and to see if there are any warning signs of why it would be bad. Right. Now, it's a luxury. Not everybody has that. But I think if you are a first-time filmmaker listening to this, I would say look around you. Is your dad in the business mm-hmm. world? Do you have another relative that operates in the business world? I mean, even Josh Lindsay, your day job is financial services. And so you have a lot of knowledge and understanding of a lot of these concepts, even though it may not be specifically toward filmmaking. That business right. brain helps in this situation.
Yeah. And there's some very simple things that you as a filmmaker can do too. Because it's a relationship as well. You have to trust these people because you're going to be in business with them from 2 to 5 years or longer. If they do what if it's a good relationship, maybe you'll want to renew with them. But, it's things like asking, just how specific are they when you're asking them questions. So, if you get a deal and you're like, okay, you look at their catalog and you're like, okay, I see that you have many things that are similar to mine. So can you give me some specific case studies about films that you think are similar to mine and why you think they're similar to mine and how did they do? And a lot of times distributors will get a little cagey, and I understand that because you can't promise anybody anything. It's like an investor. You don't really want to tell an investor they're going to make X amount of money on your film because you don't know, right? But if they know what they're talking about, they can give you range. And so like with Radical Grace, we also split rights, so that was another part of it, was like how willing were they to take which rights, and that's a business kind of thing for them as well. So we went with somebody that we did a couple that we gave them a few more rights then, and we kept the ones that we thought would be more lucrative to us, and that wasn't in their wheelhouse anyway, which is something that Christian, we've been talking about with your film too, is like, what are the things you can do on your own versus what are the things that you want an expert partner to do for you, and how much are you willing to give up money-wise for that, money and control-wise for that. But somebody should be able to say, we can give you, it can be, even if it's like, you can make between $5,000 and $50,000 in the next 10 years. Like that's at least something, it's a big, range, and it may not sound that great. But at least somebody is putting, is able to put specifics, and hopefully they can justify that versus somebody who's like, we really love what you're doing. And yeah, we're going to just, people can talk a good game, but if they're not talking a specific game, then there's nothing for you to base anything on.
Well, one of the things that I've really appreciated about this company that we are talking to, number one, they're they listen well. They listen to what I want to do with the film. They did watch it. They could talk specifics about the film, why they thought their audience would be a good audience. They, when I told them things I was uncomfortable about, they listened, and they were willing to either give me, like they gave me theatrical rights, or they gave me entertainment rights, or they explained their specific connections with different channels or different people. When I went back to them and said, I'd really love some recommendations. Can I talk to filmmakers that you've worked with? They said, sure, here are these filmmakers with films that are similar to yours. and the way they treated me has felt very respectful and very specific. So for me, so far, it feels good. But this will always stick with me, Nicole. You said to me at some point, Christian, well, if you had a deal from another company, do you think you would feel differently? Or would you still feel anxiety about this? And I was like, you know what? You're right. I don't know that it matters what company I'm talking to right now. This is a whole new ball game. And any one of them can say anything. But until I'm in the relationship with them, I mean, I can vet them all as well as I can. But at the end of the day, I won't really know until we're in a relationship.
Right.
Thankfully.
Christian, are you looking for other distribution offers right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we reached out, we've looked at several other US distributors because I didn't love the Canadian, aspect of having to, if something went wrong, retain a Canadian attorney. So yeah, we've been looking for US distributors. We certainly are looking for European ones. We found one this week that we had a good conversation with. So I do think it's just a matter of taking it slowly, one step at a time, listening to people like Nicole. I'm so thankful for you. I just cannot say that enough. From your willingness to look at our script, to ask me hard questions, to push back on. I'll remember one time where she said to me, I really don't think that you need this part in the film. And it was actually the part with Hunter. And she goes, I think that just veers off from your story. And I said, I agree with you. I totally can see why you think that part is not necessary. Let me tell you why I'm choosing to leave it in. And I had my reason for leaving it in, she thought was a solid reason and made sense to leave it in. But I had to justify why. If it wasn't going to really build the story, what was my reason for leaving it in? And so it was hard questions like that all the way from the beginning that I've appreciated, that you've really helped make this film the success that it's been. I'm so grateful for you. And I recommend her highly if anyone is listening and you need a consultant. Nicole is wonderful. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, it's been really exciting to see where you started from and really how you pushed yourself. You always knew what this film could do, and what you wanted to, and you just had to kind of push yourself to get there.
It's been a ride, that's for sure. well,
Christian,
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, what's next with the distribution deal? Like, I mean, you got Hunter reviewing it. You're having dialogue. Like, how long does the dialogue go on for before you guys sign the dotted line?
Well, I feel like we're really close, like in terms of they may get sick of us if we don't, hurry up and make a decision. But right now I sent it to my lawyer to review. There were some things we wanted to have changed in there. And sadly, he has had a little relapse with COVID. And so that has drawn out this process. So I was supposed to get back to this distributor last week and haven't been able to. So I'm waiting for this revised contract. I'll send it back to them. We'll see how they respond. But after that, I will have been satisfied, and then I have to make a decision. Yeah. But that would be just for North American rights. Right. So then there are so many others beyond that. There's European, there's Asian, there's South American rights. I mean, there's so many other rights you still have to consider. And like Nicole said, these deals are 2 to 5 years. It seems like to me now it's more of a 5-year deal.
Well, it used to be a 10-year deal until people were like, no way, no dice. So, I think that it really depends on what you can negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
And what rights you're licensing to them, because that's the other part of it. If it's something that is not your wheelhouse, if it's something that you feel comfortable with them taking, and that you know how to make money on the rights that you've retained, then
Well, right. That's why we're keeping theatrical. I know that I can four-wall a theater and I can bring in an audience. I can show the film. I can sell DVDs and books and T-shirts and walk away with cash that I can keep. And I love doing that because I'm educating my audience. I'm bringing French people, veterans, and children together, and that's an incredible experience to give a community. So, and that's very rewarding for me. So I have one last question. I want to touch on a little bit self-distribution. You had mentioned that before we started the podcast, that is an option that a lot of people are doing. What's your personal thoughts on self-distribution, and have you seen it in practice with any of your friends, or have you done it yourself?
So I think that the thing for everybody needs to realize right now is that, like, there's not just this, I think self-distribution gets a bad rap, but what you just talked about in terms of retaining theatrical rights is a form of self-distribution. So a lot of people, what I would recommend for everybody is to look at just kind of what does this hybrid look like? Like, who are the partners that you need on your distribution team that can help you maximize your revenue in all the different channels? Do you have those relationships on your own? Do you need a sales agent? Do you need a distributor? Like, what do you need? And I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. There is construction going on in my business. Yeah,
happening over there.
Little construction. I don't know where, but it is happening. So, in terms of being like self-distribution, there's a lot of people are doing certain parts of it, be it, these kind of non-theatrical spaces, community screening type things, which I think are huge. And again, if you've been in dialogue with your audience since you started your film, you know who those people are and you have a relationship with them. And so there's no real reason why you can't just talk to them directly about buying your film, And that could be doing community screenings and renting it with a screening fee. That could be bringing you in and having you speak, those types of things. For things like educational distribution, I know people who have actually done educational distribution on their own. You can do things like buy lists of university libraries and stuff. Personally, to me, I think that there's the amount of money that you pay an educational distributor, and they're usually non-exclusive. To me, that's a better use of time and money, is to have somebody who knows what they're doing and knows what conferences to go do it. But speaking of conferences, conferences are a huge place that you can make money. If your film has a conference circuit, as you will. So like for you, it's obviously it's veterans, it's military history, it's World War II, it's D-Day, it's all of those. It's French relationships like Alliance Française, doing a screening or something like that, being a part of a program at Alliance Française. That's all stuff that you can do on your own.
Right.
If you have the energy for it. That's where it also comes down to knowing your goals and knowing yourself. So.
That's great. Yeah. See, Josh, now you know why I brought her on.
I understand now. I think our audience does too. This is why being good with people and networking and staying in contact with people, even though you may never think you'll cross paths again, is a good idea. So Christian's great at that.
Thank you.
Yes.
That is so
She's
true.
a great person, so it's really fun to talk to her,
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, I really, I do not, when everybody asks me, like, how did you get started in the Chicago production community? Basically what I did was I went and I started volunteering at IPA. Yeah, IPA. IPA and just, women in film and a whole bunch of other things to meet people and to help them with their projects, make relationships. And it has served me well. And I've met a lot of amazing people along the way, Nicole being one. So thank you for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. And to our listening audience, thank you for listening to Documentary First, where we believe everyone has a story to tell and you can be the one to tell it.
Bye, everybody.